Hi, everybody. My name is Shahar. I won't say my last name. It's very difficult to get that right. I run Caliber. It's a reputation data firm based out of Denmark. I'm very happy to be here and to share the stage with our client, Florian from AUDI. And we both flew out here last night from Europe, all the way out from Europe. So if we stop making sense at some point, we'll just call you jet lag.
It's a jet lag, yeah.
But let's talk today about KPIs. And as you all know, communicators like yourselves today use data more and more in your daily business. And it's all kind of data. You typically get it in daily or weekly frequency. You typically see it through online dashboards. And that's making your work a lot more data-driven and a lot more fact-based. And then there's this, the annual reputation study. So when it comes to reputation data, and when I say reputation data, I mean perception, survey-based perception data, not web scraping or media reputation. Most companies, unfortunately, today still use the good old annual reputation study to measure stakeholder perceptions, and they consume it still through the good old annual PowerPoint report. Now, that's still the reality today, and we think that's a problem. We think this old way of managing reputation fails to achieve this holy grail of actionability. So everybody's talking about actionability. I want actionable KPIs, actionable metrics, but actionability actually comes from the ability to identify impact in order to inform decision-making to optimize activities, decision-making to mitigate crises. Of course, also the ability to learn more and interpret the data by integrating it with other data. And the problem with the annual study, the problem with annual measurements and even quarterly measurements is that they lack the immediacy that you need in order to capture that impact. And if you don't get that immediacy, you cannot actually, if you don't understand the impact, you cannot inform decision-making that can help you optimize your activities, that can help you mitigate crisis. It doesn't allow you to integrate, of course, an annual PowerPoint report cannot be integrated or correlated with continuous metrics. And it's much easier to share it widely across the company. And of course, not to talk about taking quick action, because by the time you get the annual report, most of the data is outdated. So the old way of managing reputation using that annual study does not allow for actionability. So what we've learned over the years, and we've been doing this for many years, is that in order to gain actionability, it's not about adding questions and more questions to the annual study. It's not about conducting more data analytics or advanced analytics on the data. It's not about more consulting hours on the interpretation. It's actually about continuity of data, continuity of representative data that can be better correlated. And with this, we actually came up with the Caliber dashboard. So for us, the idea with the Caliber dashboard is to get continuous daily real-time data on stakeholder perceptions around the world and stakeholders that are relevant rather than people who may be vocal online. And that continuity is what we believe allows companies to isolate those reputation triggers. So it allows companies to also correlate the data, interpret it better, understand, learn from it, and use it to inform decision-making and take action. Now, why is this important? Well, this idea of plugging the actionability gap is, for us, a way to address something that is wrong in the market today, because there is this gap between periodic research, which is infrequent and therefore lacks the immediacy, as we said, but there's also the other end, which is social listening. And social listening data is very immediate, but it's not necessarily accurate. It's not representative. It doesn't pick up the right voices and not necessarily the relevant stakeholders. And we think that by plugging this actionability gap, there's a lot of benefits for the organization, but most importantly, it allows corporate comms functions to contribute to the commercial success of the company in a more measurable way. So why is it important? It's important because the average corporate comms team in the average enterprise probably conducts dozens or hundreds of activities throughout the year with a lot of frequent media coverage. And each one of those activities tends to impact the reputation of the company. So if you have an annual change in score, it's very hard to understand what exactly is impacting the company and how. That means that communicators find it hard to inform the decision-making better, to plan better, to allocate budgets better. So because of that, that is obvious, this is a problem. But there's another reason it's a problem, and that other reason is that it's not just the activities of the company that impact its reputation. It's also macro events, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's an energy crisis, whether it's the war in the Ukraine. All of these things we've seen massively impacted companies' reputations around the world, across sectors, across countries. These things today have a very sudden, very dramatic impact on companies' reputations. And that's why it's really important to understand how to react to them. Another issue, for example, especially in the US, is political events. Political events have a tremendous impact on companies' reputations. And an example is the voting legislation in Georgia a couple of years ago. Actually, this one prompted one of our clients, Coca-Cola, to use the Caliber dashboard to inform and assess their reaction to this case being based out in Georgia. So in today's world, where this type of macro events, political events have a tremendous impact on companies, companies need to react quickly. They need to inform those reactions, and then waiting for an annual study or commissioning ad hoc studies is just not good enough anymore. So we're here in this session to talk about cars, and in a minute you'll hear more interesting story about Audi. And I thought, therefore, it'd be really suitable to use the concept of navigation. And for us, the old way of managing reputation is a little bit like navigating using static maps. So the old maps, they're somewhat useful, but they're certainly not up to date in terms of the relevance, the quality, the helpfulness that they can give you. And when it comes to navigating your reputational journey, we feel it's time for companies to switch to something more modern, to switch to something more like a GPS that gives you up-to-date information, warnings, alerts, suggested diversions, information about facilities nearby, more information that helps you reach your destination safely and quickly. So with that, I will let Florian talk to you about modern cars and modern communications.
Shahar, and hello everyone. I hope you're ready to dig deep into data and KPIs. But before that, maybe let's start soft with a short movie. But that's one of the greatest concept cars that are out there right now. And actually, that has a lot to do with the journey Audi took through the last years. Because this car is electric, it's highly automated, it's packed with lots of digital experience, and it's in sync with nature. This is the Audi ActiveSphere concept, and I love that car. But let's be honest, would any one of you expected such a car from Audi 6 years ago? I highly doubt that. 2017, the whole automotive industry was in the middle of a deep crisis, Dieselgate. And Audi was faced with a lack of trust. Starting in 2015 with lowlights in 2018, 2019. It was nearly impossible to get out there with any positive news. But then, after seeing our reputation dropped down that dramatically, we experienced Audi rising like a phoenix from the ashes. And actually, that all began here in the US. Other side of the country in San Francisco in 2018, we presented our first all-electric model, the Audi e-tron. And today we have 8 electric cars. In 2025, we will have nearly 20. And then 1 year later, 2026, we will shift our business completely. From then on, we will only launch electric cars. And I'm here today to show you how we managed our comeback communication-wise. My name is Florian Mueller, and I'm the head of insights generation at Audi Communications. A decade ago, we at Audi, we didn't use data or analytics in a strategic way. You know how when I joined Audi, communication officers measured their success? They compared the size of their clipping books. And seriously, I think, or you guys think that I'm kidding, but I'm not. That really happened and probably still happens in Germany with some companies, but not with Audi anymore. Because after years of this extremely critical media coverage, we, in the old economy, we realized that listening to our stakeholders is important and that we need the data to actually see what's going on. And that was the reason why we started our first reputation survey. And we ask our main stakeholders, our employees, our product and corporate journalists, analysts, and people around the world, what's important to you? What do you think about Audi? What about our competitors and the industry in general? And back then, the results were shocking. 5 out of 8 reputation dimensions we were looking at were flagging code red. 5 out of 8. Only our products, the Audi models, they remained a strong pillar for our reputation. But this reputation measurement here, that turned out to be the foundation for our communicative comeback. Obviously, first Audi as a company needed to change, but then we at Audi Communications were in the position to tell that story. So we took this analysis, looked at these topics, and obviously it shows us, quite frankly, where we had to work on. So we took a deep analysis on that. We considered macro trends. We looked at the benchmark, looking for opportunities within these fields. And believe it or not, that was the first time we developed an overarching communication strategy. One important step was to develop a long-term narrative for Audi. We call this the Audi focus stories, and actually we have 4 of them. How our board is driving progress with a visionary strategy. How we are leading mobility into a sustainable future. How we empower our customers with a comprehensive digital experience with the perspective of autonomous driving. And last but not least, how we live values in a time where showing a clear stance has become so important. Based on this long-term narrative, the members of our strategy circle meet annually, to set the strategic communication framework. In the center of this process sits a deep analytic reality check. How did we perform? Did we reach our goals? Did we communicate our strategic topics? And looking ahead, what are trends and challenges, not only for Audi, but for the whole industry? And what about our stakeholders? What about their opinions and expectations? And on top of this outside-in approach, we look inside out. What are potential topics from our corporate strategy? What are product or feature highlights within the next year? So we combine that, put it together in an analysis, and based on that, we derive our goals, objectives, and KPIs. And we discuss what are the most important topics within these focus stories. We call these super topics, and actually they should account for 80–90% of our output per year, because this is where we want to focus on. And every of these topics should contribute to our goals. And we measure these goals with KPIs, and these KPIs we check in our monthly strategy meeting. That's when we assess the performance of our strategy, discuss adjustments or responses, we prioritize, we allocate resources, and we give our comms teams the guidance they need for everyday tasks. However, coming back to what Shahar said earlier, tracking your goals and topics once a month is just not good enough anymore. This is too slow for modern communications, where we are facing so many challenges. Like we we move from a few opinion key leading media to a broad variety of channels, from steady comms to real-time social media communication, where every content creator can become an important influencer for your business. We realize that every single news can go global within seconds, and obviously we move from one-way inside-out communication to a real dialogue with our stakeholders. So in this fast-paced environment, it's difficult to stay on top of things all the time, and you can't do that with a monthly media report or an annual stakeholder review. You need to track your goals constantly. And to steer communication effectively, you need an integrated data approach. That's the reason why our dashboards look like this. We want to be able to analyze the whole communication process. And this starts with our output. We want to track if we did the right invest in our activities. Did we focus on the right topics and assets? Did we use the right channels for our communication? The next step, obviously, is our outcome, media performance. Most companies check media image and share of voice in their monthly reports. We want to see instantly if we are reaching or how many people we're actually reaching. In social or traditional media, internally, externally, own channels, earned media, all in one dashboard. So this is an example for our media performance measurement, actually in the last annual media conference for last year, not the one that is actually happening today, if you want to check the news later. And you see right away the concept card that we wanted presented there, and we wanted to combine that with our strategic messages, actually. That is the part with the AMC topics. The product part went really well through all social media channels. However, on our corporate side, our corporate messages didn't come through on social media. For us, it became normal because our product worked well, and it's really difficult to get corporate messages out there in social media. But we wanted to work on that, and just wanted to show you this as an example, how we use this kind of dashboards. Because this was media performance. But that alone was not an indicator if you really had an impact with your communication activities. Did you talk to the right media? Did you use the right channels? If you even have a lot of media coverage, it doesn't mean that you actually get through to your target groups, that you actually had an effect on your stakeholders' perception, if you had an impact with your communication activities. And real-time impact measurement was something that we were missing for quite a while. And that was where Shahar and Caliber helped us to master that challenge. By incorporating about 1,500 interviews per week, we now connect media analysis with real-time data on our stakeholders' perception. We gather information about various markets or stakeholder groups like engineers, analysts, or students, you name it, because the data is so big, you can actually narrow it down to all target groups. We can see if they trust us or if they lose trust in us. We can see if they are happy with our leadership team. And we can see what they think about AUDI in terms of innovation, sustainability, or integrity. We can even see if they consider working for us. And that came in quite handy when we were planning an employer branding campaign. We wanted to hire software engineers, really important group for us in the future. And we're not only tracking AUDI data, with that we're also tracking our benchmark. So we found out that software engineers would rather work for BMW than for AUDI. And so our KPI in this case, because we're talking about KPIs, was to get here a higher rate than BMW. But how should we get there? So we asked Caliber to put together a quick poll with this special group about the important criteria when selecting an employer. And this is the results. I don't want to go through that in detail. You can barely see it anyway. Just wanted to tell you how we use this kind of information in a strategic way. At this point, I just want to stress one thing. At the end, it doesn't really matter if you have the necessary resources for your data-driven approach in-house or if you use internal help. The important thing is that if you want to empower your communication specialists to use data to become insights for their everyday work, you need three things, in my opinion. You need an understanding that that data can have an impact on your communications. You need the tools to apply data in your day-to-day. And you need to have a data culture in your house where your team accepts that this gut feeling is nice to have, but that data can make a difference here. AUDI's strategic and topic-driven approach goes hand in hand with another lever, with a willingness at AUDI to use data for decision making. So 3 years ago, we installed one tool where we digitized all our communication processes. I put together a little demo for you so you can actually have a look at this tool now. It's just a glimpse, just a teaser. I wanted to show you that this is basically the center of communication steering of AUDI, because we put everything in there. And you can see here, these are our super topics, basically, last year's super topics. And you could click in here, then you see the campaigns with all the activities. You can click in there as well and have a look at our key messages. This is a playout plan that we have. Message management is in here, like as well as issue management. You can see here. And obviously we integrated evaluation and insights as well because we want to learn from our campaigns. And we have our goals in here as well. Ziele is German for goals. So the whole comms team can actually see these goals and see the status of that. As I said, it's just a glimpse. I could talk about that tool probably for a whole session anyways, because we integrated 18 modules of our communication process in that tool. You've seen it. It goes from strategic planning to topic management, from content production to content layout, from evaluation to insights that we then use for another round of communication. And as you can see, we integrate different data streams as well. These are some of the KPIs for our ESG dashboard. And you see we put in here reputation and media image as well, and we get that information basically in real time. By the way, these numbers could look better. Tracking data integrated and in real time is especially important when navigating through tough times. Look at the war in the Ukraine or the pandemic. At the outbreak in 2020, we had to do an emergency stop for all our product-related communication and events. Even if we had the world premiere of our Audi A3 just around the corner, we wanted to present that in March at the Geneva Motor Show, but we had to stop it because supporting people in danger was more important in that time than actually advertising your business. And in fact, our data showed us that we wouldn't get even through with our messages in that time because people were just thinking about the pandemic and just reading news about the pandemic. So yeah, as we wouldn't get through, we stopped our corporate messaging and started internal messaging. We spread optimism and assurance, and we tried to gain trust within the company so our employees feel a little bit safer during that time of uncertainty. So we waited and checked our data to see when our stakeholder groups would be ready again for some messages. And it turned out when we were all sitting in lockdown after a few weeks, we got all bored and couldn't read any news about pandemic anymore. That was the time where everyone was craving news that were funny or emotional. So that was when we got back on stage and we put back corporate product-related messages back out there. But that situation showed us how important real-time data actually is to get into decisions, especially in times of uncertainty. In the end, let's get back to the active sphere concept, that car from the beginning, because we launched that in January this year. And we could see after the first wave of communication an immediate effect here in the US. In this case, this is a trust and like score from Caliber, and you see it goes up like right through the campaign. However, in Germany, there was no effect. So that was Caliber's real-time tracker who showed us that impact. What did we do? We sit together with a group of content creators, other content creators for social media this time in Germany, and created a second wave of communication. And apparently that worked. That went up. We had more buzz in our outcome, and the stakeholders perceived us better in terms of innovation and sustainability. And these were two core messages of that campaign. So I hope these examples give you a better understanding of how we at Audi use live GPS, as you mentioned it, to navigate through uncertain times. And at the end of the session, I would like to, look into the future as well. And we talked about, with great conversations today about AI. And for me, that's exciting as well, because I see that more like a tool too. Like, imagine integrating artificial intelligence with media monitoring and stakeholder analysis. In the end, that would allow us to automatically detect agenda surfing opportunities. Maybe together with some computer-generated proposal for the perfect approach to get in touch with our stakeholders. We would be able to predict scenarios about the impact of our key messages, and we could maybe find new topics and opportunities in the market. And believe it or not, that is where we at Audi working on right now. That's it from my side. Thank you very much for the attention today. We having any questions?
We have a few minutes for questions, so please.
Here in the middle, yeah.
Hi, I'm Jara Sturdivant-Wilson. I'm the Corporate Communications Director at HDR. I was just curious about your comm tool, and where could someone else learn about it? Because I would love to know more.
Thank you for the question. Actually, I think from us, because this tool is quite unique. We developed that for ourselves. We did a big pitch, obviously, where we compared everything, and we decided in the end to do a solution for ourselves, to get a provider who actually is working with us and putting that together. So we can have a chat later on and to tell you a bit more about that. But yeah, as I said, it is a really interesting tool, and I just wanted to have a quick glimpse on it because, otherwise it's exploding.
Drew Brown from Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. I had a question around getting that stakeholder feedback from surveys. How is that done and at scale? Because I feel like you can burn people out with too many surveys, as well as like making sure you're capturing the right information. So how is that done?
So the setup that we have is done through two different ways. So one, it's plugged into respondent panels from research panels around the world. And those panels are quite big. And of course, it filters the evaluations based on the right stakeholders evaluating the companies that they're familiar with. And then on top of that, there is also a stream of respondents coming from the clients themselves if they want to add specialized stakeholder groups. Max?
Hey, how did you create a data culture? So one thing is having that data, and the other thing is having people use that data. So how did you develop that within your organization?
Honestly, that is still going on. You can't convince everyone with everything, but that became much more important for us. And I think in this case, it came from top down. Yeah, we had we integrated these common goals. Yeah, we communicated that internally. Say we all want to go in that direction. We need to achieve that, and we want to achieve that with these cases, and we will track it with these KPIs. And then a lot of people were like, okay, they came and asked me like, so what can I contribute to that goal? So where can I see my success in that? So I think by sharing this information, by being transparent where you want to go and how you're gonna measure that, people actually get more into it. But as I said, not everyone is convinced yet. This is a long journey to convince everyone to follow the data culture.
Hi there, I'm Meg. I run internal communications and employee engagement at Toast. Kind of piggybacking off of that data culture, how are you translating that internally in terms of how you run data, your data culture in terms of employees? So are you doing like employee surveys? Are they mirroring each other, or are they completely different?
So did I understand? You're talking about the employees, the internal communication.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in our stakeholder, in the first stakeholder survey, they were already employees integrated. So we had annual employee surveys already like working since, what was it, 2018. And it is really important. But we want to basically catch up with that approach. Not in real time, that's not possible. But we want to integrate that more often. Obviously, that's a lot of work, a lot of resources. So we're trying to see if we can maybe get that a bit better as well. So that is one point. And then we have an internal communication network, basically, where you can track news and stuff like that. And then where we measure clicks and comments and stuff like that. So we actually measure the communication that goes on between the employees as well. These are our two big approaches here.
Danke.
Gerne.
Time for one last question.
No,
it's finished.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.